Hey everyone, and welcome to Cosplay Sewing School. Today, we are going to be talking about how I turned my 12-year-old into an Among Us crewmate. So my son decided last minute, of course it's last minute because we're cosplayers, that he really wanted to be an Among Us crewmate for Halloween. Now, this year I had offered something that I have never done before. Yes, be ready to cringe. I offered to buy Halloween costumes. Yes. The kids were at first ecstatic. My 14-year-old decided it was a perfect time to request a inflatable T-Rex, which he proceeded to run around the neighborhood in with his friends and had a good old time. My 12-year-old, on the other hand, wanted something a little bit more interesting. So being as the fan of Among Us that we all are, now mind you, we play together as a family, I thought, oh, that can't be that bad. I'll make you a crewmate. No big deal. Well, little did I know that my stash busting challenge project to myself would turn out to be 2 weeks of a whole lot of work, but also a whole lot of fun. So let's see how I made this really cool Among Us costume. Now, a little note, I do not consider this my best sewing by any way, shape, or form. This was a speed run project. The goal was to have a costume he could have fun in. It had to meet a few requirements. It had to be playable. So it had to smoosh and move around with him to where he could actually have some fun and play in it. It had to be done by Halloween, and I did not want to spend a lot of money on it, so it was a stash buster. So let's talk about the inside guts. The most important part of this whole project, materials-wise, is actually the Ridgeline boning. The Ridgeline boning that I have is the stuff they tell you never use in corsets. Well, I had a whole roll of it around that I had actually purchased by mistake. I thought I was purchasing what I actually needed, had this still in the cart for some reason, and have ended up finding a whole lot of uses for it, including my foam work. So now I keep it around all the time. So I used actually an entire massive roll on this, and you'll see there's concentric rings going through the body of this character. The outside was the only thing that I purchased. That lime green is quilting cotton that we got. I had a nice clearance, or not clearance, but I had a nice sale coupon, and we went ahead and got plenty of yards of that. It is underlined or interlined, depending on how you like to say it, with cotton duck cloth. I actually always have that on hand. I pretty much buy it in the rolls. It's a kind of a twill weave. You can use it inside corsets. You can use it to make jeans. You can use it for all sorts of stuff. So I usually almost always have some on hand. So basically, I decided this was going to be a sewing project. I did not feel like making this a foam project. That would just get way bigger and honestly not be as fun for me. After we decided all this stash busting and all of these things that we were going to do, we were ready to actually embark on the design of this costume. So the really big technical difficulty that I found was keeping the costume round while still being able to give him the freedom to move all around. So what I decided was two things. One is the head had to be away from his head. So when he turned like this, it wouldn't twist the whole structure alongside with him. We did some preliminary tests, playing around with just some fabric in that by tying it, to something that would sit on his head or to a helmet. It did not turn out very well, so I ended up deciding to use a backpack structure. And I kind of stole this from people who do wings. So I had an old backpack, mind you, I am still stash busting, that had holes in it that my son had used for years. And we actually cut it apart. I went ahead and used the pocket that already existed in it, which was really cool. I made channels in that pocket for PVC pipe to go down and into, to where there was a structure that goes up and out like an L, and that holds the top of the head away from his own head. So that was that inner backpack structure. Other than that, we just have lots and lots and lots of ridgeline boning going around the body, which meant also that if he smooshed back out again, which was pretty cool. And if anything didn't want to come back out, he just punched it out from the inside. Making an all fabric project actually made it less warm to wear because, the fabric actually does have a bit of airflow coming back and forth, which we've all learned about airflow with our masks. So that was also really nice. Getting the shape of the head was the hardest part of the process for me because that was going to basically negotiate how the entire rest of this body would hang. So I tackled it by using 2 layers of ridgeline boning just so it would be a little stronger, and punched holes with my leather hole punch and literally just tied them together with crochet thread. And what that did was give me the ability to sort of connect everything before I ended up taking it to the sewing machine. It was just way too wild to take to the sewing machine before it was kind of somewhat structured together, where everything crossed at the top of the head in the center. That was kind of complicated. I couldn't really get it all in one shot with holes, so that ended up essentially just being tied together with that heavy crochet thread. Then I tried to do a draping pattern off of this. That did not work so well. So what I ended up doing was using the Evil Ted pattern making method. I know other people do it other than Evil Ted. It's just he's the one who taught it to me. So he's the one who gets the credit for giving it the idea to me. So what I did was take plastic wrap and masking tape and just wrap it up. This thing was very fragile at this point. Without the fabric connecting to it, it would like smush and get off shape easily. So it would get out of round very, very easily. So it stayed on my table and I very gently attached the masking tape around it. Then pulled that off, made a pattern out of that by flattening it, traced that onto my interlining fabric, and then went ahead and made that into another nicer kind of pattern that I could use. So then the final head piece, the final outer fabric, was made from quilting cotton that was fused with fusible web or basically heat fusible glue that just comes on. It comes sometimes backed with paper, and fuse that all together so that I could treat that like one layer of fabric. I went ahead and sewed in all of the darts, pinning everything super carefully because this was going to be the shaping for that head structure. I also used my iron, lots of steam, and my pressing ham to get those darts to really sit very curved and pretty. If you don't have a pressing ham, you need a pressing ham, and I have a video and a free pattern for that, so be sure to check that out in my channel. So after doing all of that, I went ahead and sewed that directly into the head piece. It took a lot of pins, and honestly, I broke at least 3 needles. I did wear my safety glasses because the needles were like flying everywhere. I did not get any video or really any pictures of it because essentially, if you would have seen me, I literally had my head inside this like giant head thing in the sewing machine, and yeah, there was not going to be any pictures happening. That was crazy. Once I did that though, I realized that the sections were drooping a little bit. And so I added some straight pieces of boning between the arched pieces of boning and eventually got it there. It does cave a little bit, but the videos that you're seeing here in a lot of these photos are post Halloween wear. So just know that my son stored it not how I asked him to, but in his room by throwing it in the corner of his room on the floor. So it kind of drooped after a while, but 'tis what it is. He had fun wearing it, and it's still more than wearable for him. All right, so moving on to the body, I actually decided that the entire costume would go on overhead. So the only opening was the crotch opening between the legs, which was closed with Velcro. There is actually boning around all of the leg pieces too, and that went under the Velcro, and so it goes the whole circle of the legs. I did most of the pattern was just done using math. There was a little bit of draping, but you know, it was kind of just that way. And so then I added the circles of boning about every 14 inches. There is a long line of boning going down the sides of the body just to help keep the body straight when it goes down. And then I made a simple faced flap opening for him to get his arm out, and where he wore an opera glove that was lime green. We actually did buy the opera glove just because I was so short on time, where he could stick his hand out and through, grab his candy, do his classic shush, and do his little knife thing. Now, I will say we did not use a real knife on actual Halloween. We used a proper foam LARPing knife, but it still did the same effect. It was really fun. For the backpack, I actually took a square of the green upholstery foam, the like open cell kind of thick stuff. I think it was about 4 inches thick, and basically cut it into a square, and then covered that with fabric and hand sewed that. That was not going to get in the sewing machine. I actually just whipped it. Just a simple whip stitch with some heavy thread, and whip that onto the back, which made the backpack. I mean, in the character, it's just kind of this little lump that goes on his back, so I figured that was pretty easy. So moving on to the face was created using applique technique. I use that same heat fusible glue to layer and stack the various face pieces onto each other. So there's 3 colors there. I also then fused that to heat fusible vinyl, which can be acquired same places you would buy the heat fusible glue. And very carefully, though, you have to work slow and careful with that because it's easy to burn it or essentially melt it by overheating it. So you don't want to do that. So work careful if you use that, but it's really fun to work with. Then basically hemmed out a section in the middle, use some dark colored tulle, Tulle, like, you know, what you make tutus out of. Use some dark colored tulle to make a little opening where he could see from, and also get some airflow coming through it because it did get hot. Even though it was made of fabric, it did get warm. Well, no Among Us character is complete without their hat. I mean, when I play, I have to be pink and I have to have the flower hat. Like, that's it. I have to have the flower hat. So my son, being the foam smith that he is, decided to make the leaf hat himself, and so he used 2 layers of SKS Props 2mm EVA foam, and inside of those 2 layers is just some firm wire that stick out of the bottom, and so he painted that all up. The wires were then inserted into a small little leftover bit of PVC pipe where he poured hot glue into that to just contain those wires. He made a little base out of some leftover foam clay, and then we attached the whole thing using hot glue to the head, and then he painted up any place we needed to that needed fixed up with the hot glue. So it was very sturdy and has survived a lot of play already, so that's very good. And that really topped off that character. I tell you, before the hat, I wasn't 100% certain that it was going to read Among Us, but after that leaf hat went on, I was like, yes, so good. And so was he. We were both very, very happy. So my son had an absolute blast. You can see a picture of him actually on Halloween night. So many kids ran up to him to get pictures. It was almost like doing real cosplay, which was very fun since we hadn't got to do that at all this year. And it's been a very dry spell for cosplay for our family. So yeah, we had a really good old time, and I hope that you enjoyed seeing how we did this little speed build and Halloween fun costume. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I am going to be doing a lot of videos this coming up year in in 2021, and you don't want to miss those. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to check out my website, cosplaysewing.school.com, and hit up my store. I have some cool freebies there, including that pressing ham that I talked about, and I really hope that I see you soon here at Cosplay Sewing School. Bye!